So there I am. I turn on ESPN, and I'm thinking, Big 12 is the best league in college basketball. Surely they have 9, 10, 11 teams in March Madness. But no, that's the SEC. And they want Auburn? They're like 5-11 in league play. Auburn into March? Ooh. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Basketball crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Basketball crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. And that's Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball. Thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day. Shade also hosts Locked On Tar Heels, talking all things North Carolina. So he knows from the ACC Big 12 perspective, the SEC is getting a lot of love from the major networks. Is it warranted? We'll start there, and then we'll hit BYU, TCU, Texas Tech. Some of these Big 12 schools that have sunk into that second, third, maybe fourth tier, can they still make March Madness runs? Here's why I think the answer is yes. We'll get Isaac's thoughts as well. And then, how many? Got to be 2 or 3, maybe 4 Big 12 teams can actually make the Final Four in a year where there's a pretty clear 4 at the very top of college basketball that all should be there. Who can topple? I like that facial expression. Who can topple the likes of a Michigan and sneak there, or Duke and sneak their way in? If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Shade, man, I need to know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Why? I look at Joe Lunardi's Bracketology, and he's so high on the SEC when the Big 12 and even the ACC now are top of the Big 10, so top heavy, some of the best talent in all of college basketball. The SEC just has a lot of teams waiting around in that, 12 to 35th spot, namely in net. Where does the love come from for those 3 letters, but not the rest of the country?
Well, Drake, you've just said it. With the SEC, Florida aside, it's just a lot of blah. There's do you want quantity or do you want quality? With the SEC, it's quantity. With the Big 12, it's quality, in my opinion. With the Big 10, it's quality, in my opinion. Yeah. The top 1, 2, maybe 3 in the ACC, quality. And so I think it's all about how you define success. For me, the Big 12 success comes in, there were multiple teams, and I don't want to get too far ahead for conversation, but there are multiple teams at the top of the Big 12 that I think can win the national championship. There are multiple teams at the top of the Big 10 that I think could win the national championship. Outside of Florida, there is no SEC. Hear me, everybody. See me. Read my lips. Outside of Florida, there is no SEC team that is even Final Four worthy. And so it's like, I get, because I'm the same thing. I get frustrated at the SEC love. But if we want to define it, because what do we remember? The number of teams outside of last year when the SEC set an NCAA tournament record? Sure, maybe. But outside of that, what do we remember? We remember who won the whole blessed thing, and we remember who the Final Four was. When we look back, I think even though the SEC is trending with more number of volume teams, we ain't going to remember the SEC. We're going to remember the Big 12, Big 10, chiefly from this season.
I want to push back on that a little bit.
Please do.
I do. I think if you ask the average human being, name 2 teams in the Final Four in 2022, they'd have no idea. They would have no clue. Shade, Villanova.
Other than the fact that was a wildly blue-blooded year, yes.
Oh, 100%. That was a Nova. Come on, ball knowers. Duke, Carolina is a Final Four game.
In Kansas.
Yep. At Kansas, Carolina plays Kansas. Okay, so we know, right? The average human being would have had no clue Villanova was there. And they remember that, that was Kansas, won it the year after Baylor, won it the year after. And that's what somebody asked me recently. It was a BYU fan, said, hey, what does BYU have to do to be remembered? Do they have to go to the Final Four? I said, no. Plenty of teams have been to the Final Four, and you think, oh, that's cute. Or you just forget about it altogether. You have to win championships to be at the top of college basketball. That's the weird part, though, Shade. The Big 12 did that. They won them back-to-back. They had the presence in the Final Four. They were in the title last year. Yes, the SEC won it, but the Big 12 has more in the 2020s than that conference does. why? I mean, again, people keep going back to the SEC is 500 against itself in conference play. You have to be by Newton's law of conference play. Everyone's 500 at the end of this thing. Right. How do they continue to garner this middle of the pack? We need 11 or 12 teams in. It didn't really work out that well last year.
No, it's based on what happens in non-conference play. It's based on, the net and the NCAA tournament selection committee. Like the selection committee has 6 different things they look at. 3 of them are predictive metrics based on like what the computer algorithms suggest should happen. And 3 of them are then results based metrics. And so that is what people are putting all that together. And that's what the net ranking is attempting to do, is look at all of that. And so because of where the SEC numbers are, because of what they do in non-conference play, that's why it brings this up. So like, for example, in Arkansas last year, I didn't think I had any business making it in, but there they were. Auburn, which I think now has, my goodness, they lost at home to Ole Miss over the weekend. Like, what are we doing here? So I think Auburn is finally now stick a fork in them, they're done. But before that, they should have already had about 87 forks in them and been done. And so, and I'm not defending that, I'm just explaining why it comes to be that way. I don't agree with it either.
Shade, last thing I'll give you here. You mentioned non-conference. I think you're certainly right that they're going to track that. The Big 12, 16-6 versus the SEC, 8-9 versus the Big 10, 14-10 versus the ACC, and then 7-6 versus the Big East. They've got a really good record against some of the best competition in the country. And you've mentioned, waxed poetic about why the SEC is treated this way. West Virginia sitting there screaming, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? We're 500 in the Big 12, like 19-11 overall. What more does it take? Yes, that's you've helped me get to a conclusion of why this is happening. I will not be able to compute how a TCU or West Virginia is being slotted behind in Auburn right now.
And they should not be. Like that win over, I know BYU's on a little bit of a slide right now, but that win for West Virginia over them over the weekend, critically huge. Cincinnati had been on a nice little run ever since Wes Miller apologized to everybody. Mm-hmm. TCU, beating, what was it? Case. Oh yeah, it was a purple battle over the weekend. Yep. TCU beating K-State. Good for them. I know K-State, whatever, things are crazy in Manhattan right now, but TCU should be in shape to make this thing. And so ultimately, I personally have the Big 12 as the best conference in the country right now this season, hands down. Ken Palm has them as second behind the SEC. But again, that's because Ken Palm's algorithm projects a little bit more depth that does it despite the higher end capability of the Big 12. Agree with it? No? Like the algorithm, fine, sure, whatever you're going to do, what you're going to do. My problem, Drake, is that I feel like there is baked into it a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy, where some of like the preseason projections kind of continue to live on with a lot of it, all of that kind of stuff. Ultimately, what I think is going to be great is when we get to the postseason, I fully expect when we get to the second weekend, we're looking at, okay, how many Big 12 teams are left? How many SEC teams are left? Right? Like those kind of things. And I know, so like, you can't just base it on that because so much of it is matchup based and blah, 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 blah. Fine, whatever. Big 12 is better than the SEC.
We're also arguing about who's going to lose to Michigan. I mean, if we're really honest about this,
no, come on.
Anytime we get to the bottom of we get to the bubble, we're arguing now in this era of college basketball about who's going to lose to Arizona, who's going to lose to Florida. We know. Yeah.
Well, then go with me on this. Let's not argue about the bubble. Let's look at the top end of it.
Let's do it. Well, that's the last segment, but yeah, continue.
Well, no, and I don't mean in terms of how I'm just going to talk numbers. I'm not going to talk names. Yeah. The Big 12 right now for me has 5 teams that would be a 1 through 4 seed. The Big 10 right now has 5 teams that would be a 1 through 4 seed. ACC has 2. SEC has 2. So if we're not wanting to base it on the bubble, if we're wanting to base it on teams that could actually win this whole blessed thing, there you go. The Big 12 has the numbers on the SEC by 2.5.
I like that. Coming up, BYU, TCU, these teams in the middle of the pack in the Big 12. Can one of them get hot? Can one of them win? I think so. Here's why. This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Basketball crossover. Today's show is sponsored by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like, I don't know, say markets? Yeah. Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never knew it had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now, I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play-by-play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Even contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Robinhood. Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball. I want to remind you, LockedOnBig12.supercast.com. You listen every day. Listen ad-free from now on. LockedOnBig12.supercast.com. Locked On College Basketball.supercast.com as well for the everydayers to prove your everydayerhood. Okay? I'm believing in BYU. I'm believing in Texas Tech, especially after their win at Iowa State, which that told me more about Iowa State than it did Texas Tech. It exposed to me more holes in Iowa State than it told me about what I think Texas Tech, because I already know that Tech is that kind of world beater, bloody you defensive juggernaut. For Iowa State, that's a wound, and that BYU loss after Richie Saunders went out. Those are both wounds that I go, oh, whoa, Iowa State, where'd that come from? But even still, so Texas Tech, BYU, I'm going to have them in the conversation. TCU, who's angling toward an NCAA tournament bid. UCF. Shade, the reason I think those are Sweet 16 caliber teams is because when we get into this thing, and BYU has a first-round matchup against Miami of Ohio, who I think is good, but they find a way to pull it off and win. And in the second round, they play Nebraska, or maybe Illinois, maybe Purdue or Virginia. I think the strength of the Big 12, the net of the Big 12, can propel a TCU, UCF, BYU, Texas Tech into a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 when you start pairing them against teams like Alabama or Tennessee out of the SEC, teams like a Miami of Ohio. That's where I believe this conference will thrive, because the league schedule has seasoned these rosters so well.
It is. And that's where, it's like you look up every night and not every night because we don't play every night, but there's a Big 12 matchup that's like, oh, good luck doing that. And it's not even just these top 5 or 6 teams. It's like, look, I know Utah's not great, but good luck going up to that elevation and doing stuff, right? Like, good luck heading up to Boulder and knocking off the Buffs, whatever it is, right? And so it just feels like nightly that you have to deal with something. Going down to Orlando, right? Like, I feel like UCF wins more often than you expect in some of those crazy games. Johnny's just got it cooking, And so, Drake, these nightly tests, again, I know we're talking about the Big 12 being top heavy, but I think the middle, as you said, and even some of the bottom is better than we give it credit for, around the country or where, however you want to say it. Look, like I know Kansas State is just kind of falling off right now, but they've still got PJ Haggerty you got to contend with, right? Like Oklahoma State has fallen off since some of what we maybe thought about them earlier. But Hank Iba, man, it's a tough place to go play. And so there is never like just truly a night off where it's like you can sleepwalk through it. Like the Big East. The Big East legitimately is only going to get 3 teams into the tournament this year. And it's great. Like the bottom of the Big East is awful. The Big 12 does not provide that. And while it's tougher in the slog of January and February, ultimately, Drake, as you're saying, that's so much better for these teams because they're so much more battle tested coming into March. You look at I respect everything Miami of Ohio and what they've done. Like, I'm so proud of them. It's so cool. What a neat story. But Drake, not only have they not won any quad 1 games, they haven't played a quad 1 game. Like, they are poor guys. They're just not going to be ready for March. And I hate it for them, but it's true.
I also really like them. I hate disparaging them.
Yeah, exactly, man.
But I do think they'll end up with an 11 seed, a 10 seed maybe. And people will say, well, the AP poll. I know, but the AP poll is a very different thing.
That's exactly right.
Than how we seed these teams for March Madness. Miami of Ohio will not be a top 4 seed or 5 seed, despite the AP poll having them somewhere in that range. let's camp out for a second with a BYU or a Texas Tech. Both similar situations. Lose a star player to a lower body injury. But one of the teams has responded by just winning. Texas Tech is just winning. BYU, on the other hand, they've had a pretty tumultuous last week and a half, 2 weeks. Two teams, different trajectories. I think Texas Tech, even without JT Toppin, this is word soup here, but what I want to communicate to listeners of Locked On Big 12, what I want them to know at the water cooler is today, a 3 seed upsetting a 1 seed is the same thing 5 years ago as an 8 seed upsetting a 1 seed. The gap between 1 and 3, the gap between Duke and Texas Tech right now with JT Toppin out is large. It's continuing to grow. That Tech, though, they're that team that I could still see go, you know what? Yep, they're a Final Four squad because of Grant McCasland. BYU's a Sweet 16 team. I don't see a world right now where I can take them past the Elite 8.
Yeah. Let's start with Tech. What I love about Tech, dude, I mean, it's the second that JT Toppin injury was announced coming off of that Arizona State game where that injury happened, everybody started writing them off immediately because you got the reigning Big 12 Player of the Year done and gone, right? Yeah. Like in BYU's case, you still had 2/3 of the government working for you. And to quote Mars Attacks, that ain't bad, right? And so that's the good news because there's still AJ, there's still Rob. With Texas Tech, it's been this big two of JT and Christian Anderson. And so at that point, it was like, man, CA is going to have to take a lot on his shoulders, right? And he did. Those first 2 games that Tech played right after that, Kansas State and Cincinnati, both at home, he did just about everything. But what I love, Drake, that Iowa State win over the weekend, not only was it critically important because it was away, because it showed us and voters what they can still do, because yes, as you just said, Grant McCasland is a dude of a coach. It was not just Christian Anderson, just a spread out offensive attack, 5 or 6 different double figures. I think it was 6. I'm not looking at the box score right now. But what I love is that you've got other guys stepping up, right? Donovan Outwell stepping up, doing Lawan Watts stepping in, doing some of these things as you need. You're finally getting a little healthier. Luke Bamboye coming back, some other things like that where guys are stepping into that. There is no one player for Texas Tech that's going to fill JT's shoes. You just can't. But man, the tough-nosed grit with which they play is insane to me. And when you say that, it makes you think defense. That Texas Tech offense is 9th in the country in offensive efficiency right now. And what I love is I said everyone initially wrote them all the way off after the injury. I love that this week there was a nice response back in the other direction. Texas Tech was the biggest riser in the brand new AP poll that came out on Monday, going up 6 spots. So I love that people kind of owned it. Like I've said on our show, I've seen other national people saying, hey, we thought Tech would fall off. They haven't. 3-0. And looking forward, they've got TCU at home coming up Tuesday night. And then oddly and ironically enough, the other ACL-ridden team, they're at BYU to wrap the regular season Saturday. And so, Drake, I guess that takes us then to BYU, which, as you said, has not been able to live up and do it at the same level that Texas Tech had. Now, 1-3, after the Richie Saunders injury, losing to Arizona, UCF, West Virginia, but beating Iowa State. Oddly enough, they've both. And so that's kind of the weird thing here. BYU, I'm concerned about, Drake. I got to be honest. I liked them. I was already of the Big 6 in the Big 12. I had them at the bottom of that even before Richie's injury. And so I'm nervous. I'm nervous for the Cougars. I got to be honest.
I think BYU fans are also pretty nervous here, but last year was a monumental year for them, and I'm going to say only because in the context of the Big 12, the expectation is the top teams are in the Final Four. They only made the Sweet 16. So they do that again.
Well, they got blitzed by Bama. Good grief.
Yeah, they did. That was one of the greatest shooting performances I've ever seen from a college basketball team. Don't remind them. Don't remind them.
I shan't. We rescind. We rescind.
And so, yeah, I think that if BYU does make the Sweet 16, they'd be like, yeah, we're happy. Cool. Expectation met for where the expectation was reset post Richie Saunders. Coming up, it will not be a very happy time for Kelvin Sampson if they only make the Sweet 16. Or Arizona and Tommy Lloyd. Who will make the Final Four out of the Big 12? This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On College Basketball crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Why? That's because I use Indeed Sponsored Jobs to hire interns for Locked On Big 12. Deadlines are stacking up, workplace chaos, inbox overflowing. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide, with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So all the other stuff you got going on, let Indeed help hire for you. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And right now, listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job the premium status it deserves. Indeed.com/podcast, Indeed.com/podcast. And tell them you heard about it on Locked On Big 12. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Oh, hello. Today's show is also sponsored by FanDuel. College basketball, nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits this right here. You'll love the Big 12. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Go safe. Go bold. Ride with a team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game and do it with FanDuel. Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball. The time we're recording this is actually before a fairly marquee game that will take place in the Big 12. Tonight, Iowa State travels to Arizona. The reason being two things. Number one, I would like to go to bed before 1 a.m. Eastern time. Number two, they're both going to be either a 1 or a 2 seed in March Madness. I don't see that changing based on how their schedule looks. I do believe the committee will honor them. But they're still part of this conversation, no matter the outcome of that game yesterday. Iowa State, or even that Texas Tech dark horse, a Houston and Arizona, of the Big 12 schools near the top of college basketball, how many are actually, and again, I think the gap between a 1 seed and a 3 seed is way different now than it was a few years ago. That 1 seed is so heavy with talent. Is there a cutoff line in the Big 12? Where is the cutoff line in the Big 12 for teams that can actually be Final Four?
Top 5 are all Final Four possibilities.
No way. That's a lot of teams. No, it's a lot of teams.
Drake, I'm deadly serious. Now, there are contingencies, of course. Can Darren Peterson play basketball? If he can, there is no reason that a Darren Peterson cannot help lead this team to the Final Four, to Indianapolis. You think about it, like one of the trade-offs of all his on and off is think about all the experience that Melvin Council has had having to lead this team when DP's off the court, adjusting to things that fly at him unexpectedly, right? Like that's what March is. And Trey White and these dudes. Flory Badunga is coming into his own. My goodness. And you've got this dude on the sideline that is one of the best to ever do it in Bill Self. We talked about Grant McCasland. Man, Bill Self, arguably, if not the best coach, top 3 doing it right now. I mean, it's insane how good he is. And so I know you mentioned earlier some holes in Iowa State's game, but there are the pieces in place. Joshua Jefferson is one of the singularly best players, most impactful players in the nation right now. Not to mention Milan Momcilovic, this dude that plays the 3 at like 7'42", knocking down threes at a ridiculous clip. Taman Lipsy and all his experience at the 1. So Iowa State can do it. When I look at those top 5, that to me is still the cutoff. But obviously, Arizona is the singular team that is most in shape to do it. Why? Because as a 1 seed, you have all the best percentage chances. Drake, I know that Duke is number 1 overall right now. I know some people love Michigan even more. And the LJ Kaysen injury they had over the weekend matters, but he's not a starter, so it's not a critical blow to them. But to me, Drake Toll, Arizona is the most complete team in the entire nation.
Oh. Say that again. I didn't hear you.
The Arizona Wildcats, under the leadership of Tommy Lloyd, are the most complete team in the nation. And Drake, if I got anything to say, this will be the year that people finally stop asking the question, can Tommy Lloyd win a big game in March? Because they're going to freaking do it now.
Are they? Most complete is there, for sure. John Shire's good, man. Dusty May's good. Those rosters are for real. Florida, they've been there. UConn, they've been there. You could argue that level of experience for Hurley and company is going to give them an edge come March, and that if they face Arizona, that experience could ultimately give them the edge enough to win. If Arizona's the most complete, does that mean they're the national champions?
I think they have just as good a shot at it as any of those other teams. Now, My goodness. There are more teams with a chance to be national champion than I can remember in recent years.
You believe, really? You think that? You think that?
I truly do. Because Duke, Arizona, and Michigan are your clear, obvious. They are the top 3 teams. They are going to be number 1 through 3 overall in some form or fashion. That'll be determined because it's such thin margins. I think it's going to be determined by championship week, who wins conference tournaments and who doesn't. Beyond that, because of the recent losses that Houston took, that 3-game losing streak, because of a little bit of struggles from Iowa State here, I think they're kind of out of the 1 seed picture unless they can win the Big 12 tournament. That might get them to that 4th 1 seed. But right now, as we sit here today, Drake, that 4th 1 seed is between Florida and UConn. They have wildly the inside track on that. Yep. But then, so those top 5, I all really think can do it. But beyond that, you've got the pedigree of Houston. They just did it. I mean, it was them in Houston last year, and the Florida backcourt is getting better. They're still not there. Now, history would tell us that Florida can't be national champions because every national champion in the 64-team era has hit at least 33% of their threes or better. Florida is multiple percentage points beneath that. So they would have to do something historically out of the mold to win the national championship. So I will not be bracket, but I do think that they could be a 1 seed if they run the table here. But beyond that, like Michigan State, Texas Tech, Illinois' talent, dude, I know they've taken a couple losses here. They lost to Michigan over the weekend. I believe in what Illinois is doing. They just got Kylan Boswell back from injury. Man, Keaton Wagler, excuse me. Oh my goodness. In this year of the freshman, he's one of them. So yeah, I think there are a host of teams that could come out and win this thing. But very easily, any one of them could be the Big 12 because there will not be another conference that will have 3, 1, and 2 seeds, but the Big 12 will.
I do want to shout out Ilaslav Molotov of Illinois and his ability to come off the bench and score. And while that's not an actual
I was going to say, that's not
Illinois player, at least 5 people listening were like, yeah, man, he's been
I buy it.
Like, yeah, dude, you just start throwing consonants together and then, like that's
the Eastern Bloc is strong in Champaign.
Probably a guy that plays for Illinois, I guess. Yeah, sure. The way that Brad Underwood has built that roster this year, I think they're as good a shot as any Brad Underwood team in the last 5 seasons to make a run and win a national championship. They're kind of, again, what I hate is, let's say Illinois is a 3 seed. Like that's just there's a tangible gap that I find so much more extreme than usual between an Illinois and a Duke, or between an Illinois and an Arizona. And maybe it was that way 3 years ago. This is just recency bias, but it feels like that gap between 1 and 3 is massive because of how good, due to the portal NIL, the top of college basketball is. And Pete Souza, ESPN play-by-play, joined the show and said, the days of St. Peter's are over because of NIL and the portal. It's going to be really hard to do.
But here's the other part of that, though, Drake, is that a lot of those guys that would have been 12, 13, 14, and 15 on Duke's bench that were 5 stars are now not on Duke's roster. They're playing on some of these 3 seeds. And so in that regard, like some of that wealth is spread out more, and that's where it works and where you get some of these. Now, a lot of them aren't going to St. Peter's, but you look at, what I'm very curious to see, just following this rabbit trail for a second, is last year we had so much chalk. Does that happen again? Because I'm not buying it as the thing yet. But if that happens 2 or 3 years in a row, then we got a serious conversation on our hands. And so a lot of it is going to fall this year, because with all the undefeatedness of Miami, Ohio, they're not the best mid-major team in the nation this year. It's St. Louis. By far, the Billikens would blast Miami, Ohio on a neutral floor.
That's good. Isaac Shade. You can find him on Twitter at Isaac Shade, SCHADE, with Locked On College Basketball, Locked On Tar Heels. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day. A crossover, college basketball, and Dose Grande. Quick and easy, dude. Almost too easy.